That's the one that opens this room. Inside, you'll find the warm fire, a loving cat, and a wide skylight to the stars.
And a dangerously high to be red pile.
I'm Morgan, I use they them pronouns, and I am the broken hinges I keep in my pocket from that day I got kidnapped and married.
I'm Sorren, I use he him pronouns, and I am getting paid in chaos.
We've been friends for over a decade and are always swapping books.
Each episode, we take it in turns to recommend one another a favourite read. This month is Swordtember.
So let's get to talking about...
A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland.
So... Sorren.
Yes.
Finally, we're here. We're reading A Taste of Golden Iron.
We are.
Tell me about how you found this book.
Well, there was this extremely cool person. I don't know if you would know them. They're really funny and really talented and really clever. And they were like, hey, Sorren, I got you this book for Christmas or my birthday. I'm not actually sure. I don't remember. There's a note in the front of it, which is it's Christmas, which I would like to read if you're comfortable with me reading it out.
Okay.
It was, Dear Sorren, Achillean fantasy? ? Bodyguard/prince romance? ? I thought of you instantly. Happy holidays, Morgan. Kiss kiss. December 22. So it was 2022, which is a while ago now. Damn.
Mm.
And I do think I was vaguely aware that this book existed, but I hadn't got it, obviously, or read it yet. So, And then, as loyal listeners will know, I talked about it on our 2022 wrap-up episode, I think, and said that I was going to read it immediately in 2023, and then it took me till September. But then I did.
A classic for us.
I did read it in September, and I was blown away. And then I read it again 2 months later, I want to say. It might have been August and September even. And then technically I reread it a third time. But that time I didn't log anywhere because I started reading it to check a particular scene to see how Rowland had done something. And then I just kept going. So I read 3/4 of it.
I think that counts.
I think that kind of counts. If it's more than half, I think it kind of counts.
Yeah.
And then I read it a fourth time because I was like, I can finally force Morgan to read it. We finally have a theme.
And there we go. A long road we've gone to get here.
Such a journey. Only 3 years.
Yeah, because I got a copy when I first started work at the bookshop because somebody had left a copy on the proof shelf, the communal proof shelf,
Shocking.
which is for either books that we're sent that aren't addressed to anybody or books that people have read and then brought back. Because some people actually get rid of books after they read them, unlike me. And I remember asking my manager and being like, is this allowed for cafe staff as well? And she was like, yeah, take it. And I was like, okay. And so I took it. And so I have a proof that's marked 23rd of June, 2022.
Oh my God. It's a relic.
And I read it this week.
In fairness, you wanted to read it earlier and I was like, don't. Because the first time I read it, I immediately texted being like, we're going to do this on the show eventually. So I'll take that L. That's because I was like, you're not allowed until we eventually committed into the schedule.
There's so few books that you've read and really enjoyed that I haven't read.
Exactly.
So we had to keep it.
You're so fast. Sometimes I'll read something thinking, this would be a good one to read. And then if it's really good, I can recommend it for the show. And then when I go to log it, I see, Morgan has read this. And I'm like,
God damn it.
They got there first. I just didn't check. So it's ironic that it only happened when you actually bought me the book. But we've achieved it.
We've achieved it. Here we go. Here we go.
Shall we see what you surmised of it from my drunken rambling, drunken metaphorically, in this sense, drunk off Achillean romance?
Yes. I just want to note, this proof is so old that the hardback retail price it says is $16.99. I don't remember the last time I saw a hardback be less than 20 quid at this point.
This one is $18.99 on the inside cover.
Oh,
there you go.
Interesting.
Went up £2 between the proof and the actual release.
Because I bought that quite soon after it came out.
Yeah.
So, damn. That's crazy.
Inflation. Almost
Yeah.
like someone's been messing with the currency.
To be fair, it's also funny because it's a tour book and their novellas are also like £19.99
£1 million
for hardbacks. Yeah. So it's actually cheaper than novella, which is quite fun.
Yeah.
But yes, let's listen to my insane blind that I did whilst wandering around my house, desperately trying to find a quiet room because everything was everywhere. And I was desperate to start reading it. Here we go. Okay, so A Taste of Autumn 9, finally doing it. It's been years. I am super excited. Obviously, I have read Alexandra Rowland's other book, whatever it's called, Running Close to the Wind. So I know to expect. I feel like this one isn't comedy from what I've gathered from Sorren as much. So I'm not expecting that, but I am expecting rich world building and gay people and a lot of good like diversity, maybe some disability rep. I know that the country that this book is set in is the villain of Running Close to the Wind. And Sorren really likes the characters, despite the fact that they are essentially treated as terrible people in the other book. So I'm interested to see how that works out. If I recall correctly, this is a bodyguard romance, but I could be just pulling that out of my... So, yeah. I have no idea. I'm expecting good vibes. I'm expecting good vibes, and I know that the older sister, of the royal character is like a girl boss kind of character. And I always love a good girl boss character. So I'm expecting to love that character. My wild prediction is... my brain says mermaids. I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure this has nothing to do with the sea. But my brain says mermaids, so we're going with mermaids. There we go. Also, actually, another thing, I feel like something Midas-esque. I feel like turning, like alchemy and stuff like that. Yeah. That was a really coherent blind. I hope everybody loved that. I'm very out of practice. Enjoy.
I'll give you mermaids, because there's that big thing about like the river spirits and the fact that Caddo looks like one and they eat people's hearts or whatever. They don't eat people's hearts, they replace them with burning embers. I'll give you that. Very tangentially.
Thank you ever so much for your charity.
And the Midas thing, there's something about touching and gold. It's not turning things to gold with your touch, but it is touching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that vibe. Yeah.
It would really suck if Caddo had the ability to turn things he touched to gold, because then he would not be able to do half of what he's doing here.
No, I think I had a pretty good grasp. It's funny that I didn't remember that it was a bodyguard romance properly, even though I advertised it to you as a bodyguard
That was like 3 years ago, though.
It just shows how long it's been.
That was a while ago. Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I saw this first through like people on TikTok being like, oh my God, guys. Oh my God. It's like, if you liked A Marvelous Light, read this kind of thing.
It is one of those things where you can kind of just list the Area 3 tags and get quite a lot across. And given that it is dedicated to the fanfiction community, what can I say?
Beautiful. Yeah. It's always going to be a good book. Well, actually, that's a bit of a sweeping statement to be like, it's always a good book if they're a fanfic person, considering some of the recent publications. But it's always going to be good when it's gay romantasy and they're a fanfic writer. There we go. It's much a smaller pool.
And I think there's something to be said for when you write something from such a place of joy, which is kind of what that dedication was about. And then also, I didn't remember this at all, but rereading the afterwards when Rowland is like, yeah, this went through 6 years of drafts, but I had a great time the whole time and I never got tired of it. I was like, wow. But I feel like that's a huge testament to like the final result, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, it's someone who knows the characters that well and has spent so much time with it, but also never got tired of them.
Mm.
And that was the thing they mentioned as well. They were like, nothing changed about Evermare and Caddo throughout all of that. Like, they were the North Star.
That's cute. Yeah, this is all new to me because at the front, mine just says Deddy TK.
Oh.
And at the back, it just says acknowledgements brackets 2 pages TK.
Wait, let me find the dedication for you because I feel like you'll appreciate it.
This is all news.
The dedication is for the fan fiction writers who taught me everything I know, including most especially the pursuit of joy.
Oh, yeah. I like that. That's really cute. Yes. This is honestly such a fun book. Like, I know I went in being like, it's not as much of a comedy, and that's definitely true, but it's still so funny.
It's so funny.
Like, Alexandra Rowland is so
Tardek
good.
is like the funniest character ever, and I want Tardek and Abra, for those who are only listening to this and haven't read Running Close to the Wind, Abra is the protagonist of Running Close to the Wind, to hang out so bad. They would love each other. They would definitely sleep together. I don't think it would actually work very well, but they would do it just to try it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, Tadek and Julian, they should have a chat.
They should. They absolutely
should. Artists of their craft. Yes. See, I went in not knowing who the romance was between for the first whole chapter.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh. And then Tadek came in and I was like, I'm pretty sure this isn't the love interest because of I know there's a novella called Tadek and the Princess, and I feel like that's something else. But I was like, by the end of the first chapter, I was like, is Tadek the love interest? Mm-hmm. Who else could be the love interest right now? This is so... I'm thrown off. But I feel such fondness towards this character because I know that Sorren loves him. So I was like, I don't like that he's being mistreated because I feel very fond for him. He's like, he's my Pookie's Pookie. So... no one's allowed to hate him.
Oh my god, my son, the light of my life. I feel like on every reread, I like him more because, especially knowing the book, obviously the first time I read this, I was like, well, he seems a bit like, not to echo Evermare, but flighty. You know, he's really gone for this thing, and Caddo's out here being like, no, it was definitely just an accident. But obviously, looking back on it, you're like, no. He was right the whole time. Like, everything he saw was probably accurate. Like, it's all...
yeah.
It's all true. And he got, like, stripped of all of his accolades and all of his hard-earned rank. And for what? And everyone was insanity.
The realization that Evermare has when he's like, oh, no, I would have done exactly the same thing in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. And the whole... I didn't go in knowing that it had really good anxiety rep.
I was wondering if I should warn you, but I was like, I think it'll be okay. So I'll just let that be a surprise.
No, it was so good. Because it's like, yeah, he's anxious all the time. So when terrible things are happening, he's either dismissing and being like, no, my brain's just overreacting. Or he's like, oh, I know exactly what to do right now, guys, because I'm always prepared for everything to go wrong.
Yeah.
This is good. I have my fears confirmed. Now I can proceed. It was so good. I feel like I haven't seen anxiety rep this good and this extreme, I guess, since I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman.
I feel exactly the same way. I was reminded of it reading it every single time because it's the only one that I've seen that, at least like for me, resonated with like what the experience of anxiety is like actually like on like a day-to-day basis. Like we're reading this a little bit before Disability Pride Month in terms of when we're recording this. But I feel like this is like a good argument for like, look how mental illness can actually be disabling. Like it takes up so much of Caddo's life and health. And it means that he has to rest and he has to like recover because panic attacks are actually like physically exhausting. So basically equivalent to running a marathon. So like he needs to sit afterwards. And I like that actually there's page time for that as well. That was reminding me of what Ella talked about in our writing disability in fantasy episode last year, in terms of like allowing the characters to like have that breathing time without necessarily pushing themselves towards a goal. Not that Cadeau is not like toxically pushing himself, he absolutely is. But there is still like moments for him to breathe so that it actually feels like a legitimate portrayal of like what he's going through, because he can't push through all of it.
Yeah. Oh, it felt so validating, because it wasn't just like, I'm anxious disorder. It was, I'm shivering and I don't know why. It was, I literally can't stand, I can't breathe. Like, that was like, I was like, okay. Oh, it was so good.
It's a lot.
So good. Yeah, I wasn't as bad as when I read I Was Born for This, because that, I think I was reading physically, so I was going through it, whereas this I audiobooked. And I'm familiar with the narrator because they also read Running Close to the Wind, so it was less extreme. Whereas when I was reading I Was Born for This, it was like on the bus in the middle of summer London heat, and I was like reading it and going...
Yeah, that's fair enough. I feel like there's also something to be said just for first person versus third. Like, you're not actually in it, whereas I Was Born for This is first person, so it's like, I am in it. Like, I am feeling all of this. Versus Cadeau is feeling all of this, and he's having a very bad day.
Oh dear.
This could just be called Cadeau's very terrible day. But then it kind of becomes a good, so, you know, good for him.
Yeah.
That is also a funny thing on a reread, because you're like, it's your anxiety, bro. Please tell your sister what's happening. And the way that it like skews his priorities, because he's like, no, I don't want to make trouble. I can't, you know, it was just because he was upset that day that he attacked me in my sister's office. And I'm like, tell her that he touched you, and that will immediately change the conversation. Like, it's not just that he like
laid
yelled
hands
at you.
on you, bro.
He did. How dare he not to become a monarchist, but he doesn't have the right. He's just some guy.
He's just some guy. Yeah. Oh, every time he like didn't understand what a body father was, I was like, I can't believe you insulting their customs. You're not her father. Leave.
I love that piece
even
of
his
world building
sister
as
being
well.
like,
yeah.
I love that as a world building thing, and the fact that like Cadeau has more like rights over the child than like her body father. I love that. I love that. And it makes like the whole thing about like in the real world, people being like, we can't have queens because XYZ ABC, whereas now they're like, oh no, it's great if we have a queen because they have complete and entire rights to it. Like,
honestly, way better to have a queen. You would actually think that this culture is being quite progressive by allowing to have kings at all, because that's when you get confusing and they have to get married to people and stuff. You'd think it'd be easier if you were just like, no, sultans have to be able to have children at least, regardless of what their gender is.
Yes, yeah. And the little sprinkling in of transness with
Malik.
Is it Malik? Yeah. Who's like...
Malik, my beloved ace arrow.
Malik. Yes! An icon. The discussions they were all having about like how attraction works was so funny to me.
So cute. Mela gets so excited that Everman might be Ace Arrow. Che is wrong, but Che is on the right lines, kind of. And there's like, wait, so you also uninterested in this? And Everman's like, I'm just really repressed.
My beloved.
Besides the point. No, I love all the relationships in this. Like, I feel like even like little ones that you don't like see a lot of like Malik and Evermare interacting, just as like a random example, but they still feel like very legitimate. Like you can kind of imagine conversations between them. Like everyone's well established enough that you're like, yeah, these are real people who are just having a little chat.
Yes, they are co-workers. They have common goals. They vibe together. The good vibes.
They're just all mutually obsessed with Cadeau, and who can blame them, really?
They're so real for that. So am I.
You know, same, to be honest. So
I love him. He's my boy.
He's trying his best.
I just love like royal characters who understand the fact that they have obligation in return, and the fact that they are like just about like dedication, if not more so than their guards. And just, it felt very reminiscent of Gansey from the Raven Cycle. In that sort of way of like, I have been born with this position of privilege. Everything I do has so much weight or power, and I'm paralyzed by what that means. And the fact that like, I've been born into this obligation. I love that. It's my favorite trope.
Yeah, I feel like it's very interesting to see how he's like dealing with the fact that he's like, yeah, this is a privilege, but also none of this like belongs to me, is like an interesting way of like looking at it all. Like even him at the end being like, I just want Evermare because he can be like the one thing that belongs to me, because in his eyes, like the palace isn't his, like it belongs to the country and it belongs to like people and things. And you know, you could be like, well, you're the one that gets to live in it, mate. But you can understand that he's been raised with this like particular like view of his duties and like what that means. And also just like low-key traumatized by being like, if you people will die at the age of 5.
Honestly, that's so I loved that as like a little thing of like how his anxiety began and him being like, yeah, I thought because of this thing I did that I'd kill people because of this teeny tiny thing.
Yeah.
And
then his parents died when he was like 10. There's a little bit more of that in the novella. But like, man, this poor kid.
Yeah. Damn. It felt very reminiscent of like OCD and the idea that like, oh, if I don't like do these rituals, then people I love die kind of thing.
Yeah. Or
people I love could get hurt. And that felt very reminiscent of that, because obviously there's a lot of overlap between anxiety and OCD. So that was not fun to see, but fun to see, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's just very honestly represented. I don't know what Rowland's experiences with anxiety are, but I would be very surprised and complimentary if they were just writing from a place of like research, because oh my god,
yeah.
That's how it feels. But I do like that it's sort of interesting as well in the context of it, like in the romance here, because it's obviously like a very big part of the romance in some ways, because it's like the thing that initially sets Evermare at odds with Caddo, because he's completely misreading it and he's like, yeah, he's just being irresponsible, like he just doesn't care, or it's just performance, or whatever it might be. And then it's driving a lot of Caddo's behaviors as well, even within the relationship, to be honest, within the development of the relationship.
Because it does.
And it would, exactly. Yeah, I feel like it's a good balance between like that and then also like not romanticizing it at all. Like the moments of like comfort coming between like Evermare and Caddo are like very sweet, but it's not like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
think it's also so important that like Caddo is also misunderstanding the issue. And it's like, I am just a coward. And sort of the fact that everybody in the novel is coming to terms with the fact that this is like an actual illness.
Yeah, I also like, I've never seen anything like this in like a fantasy novel where they haven't just opted to be like, oh yeah, it's a fantasy novel, but like they kind of understand mental illness just because of like the culture or whatever. Like it's really interesting that like Caddo is in a context where he's like, no, I'm not sick. And reading it as like a modern reader, you're like, you are sick. You are very much sick. I remember the first time I read this, I was like, somebody get this boy some fantasy duloxetine. Like, he needs something. He's so unwell. But like,
please.
Obviously they don't have that like understanding of like, no, this is like an illness, like any other illness. So he's like, no, this is a character flaw.
Yes.
I also like that he doesn't like overcome. That's kind of a basic one for like mental illness in fiction. But, you know, it doesn't like get wrapped up neatly at the end. Like it's in a more positive place, but I also find it really interesting that he has that conversation with Evermare about talking to the temple dedicates. And Evermare's like, you should go. And Caddo's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like it doesn't actually end with him getting therapy. He's like, no. And I feel like it's believable that he would not, one, be ready for that, and two, it might not even be like the thing that helps him personally. And that's fair enough.
Fantasy drugs, please.
Fantasy drugs.
Please.
If no fantasy therapy with a very religious lens, no fantasy drugs. What's he supposed to do, guys? Come on. No wonder he's an alcoholic.
Raw dog life. Come on. I did find that so funny when he was like, yeah, well, I could do drugs instead. Would you like me to do drugs?
I've thought about drugs.
No.
I've considered. He's like, here's the ones I've tried. Here's the ones that I'm not going to try.
Yeah, like I am attempting to self-medicate, okay? Like, we've made attempts. Yeah. Speaking of fantasy drugs, I know this is such a common thing for like medieval-esque fiction, but when they were talking about like the baby princess and they were just like, oh yeah, and we gave her some milk of the poppy for her to like go to bed. And I was just like, you did what?
Did they give her that to
Like, I know that's a thing. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I thought it was to Iazina. Oh my god.
Oh, I might have missed it, but I thought it was
To be fair, they just used to give children brandy and stuff, you know?
I know.
It was a wild world we lived in.
Crazy times. Yeah.
The Sultan was probably
so
still drinking throughout her pregnancy. They probably don't know, but that's not a thing that you should do either.
So true.
If the rest of them drink, yeah.
Yeah. I've just loved like the fact that this was all built around the break-in at the ship guild, at the shipbuilders guild.
You can see why I was losing my mind about this and running close to the wind, because it's so serious in this book. And then you find out that while this is happening, while they're doing the questioning of the Cahular in this book, somewhere, Avarice waltzing in, drunk as a skunk, comedically avoiding all of the guards. Gave this an extra pizzazz on the reread as well. I was like, he's out there somewhere. He's also being questioned by this particular Satyota, which is also extremely funny because she's an icon and I love her and I would love to see her again. Tamsyn, you have my heart.
Absolutely. Such an icon. Being paid in chaos. Just here for the vibes.
When she's like following them through the escape and they're like sneaking around and she's just like walking after them, taking swigs of her wine, like, I just want to see where this goes. And then they have to like jump out the window and she's like, catch my wine first. I'm not jumping out without the wine. So you two catch this and then I'll jump out the window.
I think the next book should be about her.
I agree.
Yeah, I think she deserves a sapphic romance.
I agree. With the Sultan?
With the Sultan. Oh my God. Yes. Please. That would actually be so cute.
She needs a rebound, you know? And to be fair, her whole thing was like, at the end, she was in a bit of like the romantic doldrums and she was like, I can't do this again because it just causes too much like confusion. I'm like, well, if you're with someone who can't get you pregnant, then that kind of simplifies things a little bit, you know?
So true. So true. You know? And they just, I feel like they would vibe. I feel like they have the same like sense of humor to a certain extent, just coming at it from different angles.
Yeah.
You know, and they'd be truthful with each other and the vibes.
That's so true.
Yeah. The vibes.
I can see it.
Soup. Alexandra Rowland, come on, let's go. Book 3.
We have requests. I was wondering if the Duke from the portrait is in one of the other books. I think that's possible, but I'm not sure. Because I think that maybe Yield Under Great Persuasion is set in Winter, but I'm not sure. And also, I have to retract. In Running Close to the Wind, I said that I had a bad opinion of the vintage because for some reason I got confused and I thought Cyrenus was vintage, but he's not. He's always sick. So sorry to the vintage.
Wow.
I mean, I'm still upset with them because they have a terrible religious system and also they apparently have an oppressive regime going on that makes them murder university students who are discussing overthrowing the monarchy. So, you know, that's still bad.
Not great. Not great.
You know, and at least in Oisika, they kind of have democracy. Doesn't seem to be going very well for them, but they're trying it.
They're trialing it. They're attempting.
You know, it's quite funny seeing Cato being like, yeah, you know, democracy, but it doesn't seem to be working that well over there. So I guess it's kind of just like, we might as well throw in the towel. And it's like, there's other ways to do it, right?
No. It's like when people are like, yeah, well, communism doesn't work because look at all of these failures of communism. And you're like, that wasn't real communism. And also, do you think capitalism is working any better? No.
Exactly. I've got to hand it to Arash, though. They seem to have like a fairly good system of like public health and like sanitation and water and stuff, you know?
Yeah, they value their people.
They do. They don't value anybody else. But that's, you know.
Yeah. Also, there was at the beginning of the book, I feel like Kado was like, yeah, the reason that we are such a rich nation is because of the value of our coin. And I was just sitting there going, it's because of the serpent juice, my guy.
I mean, he does also say the serpent juice, to be fair.
I feel like that's quite a big bit. Yeah, but he doesn't say that until much later in the book.
Yeah, that's true.
He's just like, yeah, it's all about the money because I have many opinions about commerce. It's like, maybe also your monopoly on trade for 6 weeks of the year might be something to do with it, mayhaps.
Yes.
Perhaps. Yeah.
I love Evermare falling in love with Cadeau because he keeps info dumping to him about economics while he's drunk, though. It's so cute. It's so silly.
Cutie patooties.
Also a very good way to get that into the novel for like people who might not know about debasing.
Yes.
Because why would you necessarily going in?
Exactly. That's how you get a baddie, through info dumping. It's
Honestly,
a tried and true method.
ADHD couple of all time, Evermare and Cadeau.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this with all my heart. Like, Evermare is like, I can't read people, I can't express myself.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says that I don't emote. Like, please. I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
I know who this man is in my heart.
I see it.
Things have to be such a specific way.
The rules are made.
Like, even if they're perfect, he'll go around reorganizing things. He'll be like, no.
There are rules, they must be followed because they make sense and they are logical. Ugh.
And then when the rules aren't working, he's like, what? Huh? Wait.
What?
Rules.
So the entire thing I based my ethical code on as a young child is incorrect.
Doesn't make sense.
Oh dear.
I love how like
I
love how unfair he is with Cadeau at the beginning, though, to be fair. Like, when Cadeau is eating his breakfast, he's there like, such a fancy breakfast with so much like nice food, he's not even touching it. And then he sees the simmet and he's like, simmet? That's too common for a prince. It's terrible. And it's like, he can't do anything right, Evermare. Like, you're just upset with him. Like, it doesn't actually, you're coming up with a reason to be upset with him, but you're not.
He's so grumpy. I love him. Yeah. But then he melts slowly but surely. And it's so cute. And then he's the whole... I love when it switches from like, I hate you, to like, how can you allow yourself to be treated this way? Mm-hmm, like, how, you live like this? My favorite. Outraged on his behalf.
The pattern of everybody being like, why is Cadeau being so weird about Cyranos? And then seeing Cyranos once and being like, oh, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, no, he's correct entirely. Jesus Christ.
Like, actually, he's being way too nice to Cyranos. This is terrible.
Yeah. Bro. Terrible vibes. Rancid vibes from that man.
Absolutely. I do like that we get like a little bit of like insight into like his backstory and who he is as a person and stuff. I feel like that's interesting.
Yes. Him being like, yes, this deception will work because this is how my family fell apart. And obviously, you can't be a younger sibling unless you have designs on the throne.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Whereas Cadeau's like, keep me away from the throne, please. I'm already too close to the throne. God. I don't want any more responsibility than I already have. I'm at my limit.
Yeah. Whatever you do, don't kill my sister. Don't die. Stay where you are.
He's like, please have as many children as you can so that I
please
am further and further away.
Buffer me from the throne.
And now he's just having a great time with his husband up in the mountains.
Yeah. Honeymoon.
Can we talk about how elegantly this, like, we have to get married trope gets put into this story? Because
it's so well done.
It's so good. Oh my God. And like 2 instances of we have to make out right now or else we're going to get caught. Rowland knows exactly what they're doing.
Yes. They're so good at slipping in the tropes in a way that feels so organic that it doesn't even feel like tropes. It just feels like the natural place the story should be going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the aftermath of all of those.
Yes.
Evermare being like, no, don't say that you won't do it again. Don't. Because you might have to do it, to keep us alive. You might have to. So that we don't die. That's the reason. That's the only reason.
Yeah, that's the only reason. And now I'm going to lie about the fact that I am too busy to go to the temple because yada, 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 yada. I love a good, relationship where characters get into a relationship, but they're like, we're only doing it because of this.
Mm.
And so because they both think the other hasn't developed feelings, they miscommunication. That's the only way I'll accept miscommunication.
It's almost like fake dating, but not quite.
Yes.
It's both fake dating and secret relationship together, and you get both of the associated emotions with that.
Incredible. Why have one when you could have both?
Honestly.
Masterful. just the use of satiotas in both books is just so good as a plot device, like every single time.
It pays off so well. We need one as a protagonist at some point. It's got to happen.
Please. Please.
I also love that scene where she asks them, and then Evermare's like, yeah, here are my titles. And then they're like, what? Are you sure? Use all of your powers. And she's like, what the these aren't, what do you, I don't like, it's not like a laser. Like, I can just tell. They're not lying.
Yeah. Come on, bro. She's so done with the whole thing.
And then also that little moment later as well when she is speaking to Kado, and Kado's like, oh, my sister would like pay you a lot to return me safely. And she's like, sorry? Well, can you just say what he said? And then Evermare repeats it, and she's like, okay, you kind of didn't quite believe that, bro, but all right.
The fact that his anxiety with the Truth Witch's power is so good as a concept. It's like, you're so good at convincing yourself of things or like doubting yourself that it just sends the entire thing off its axis.
Exactly, because I guess all the Truth Witch can do is check whether you believe what you're saying, because otherwise it would be like, I'm sensing like what's actually happening like out there somewhere. You could use it to be like, is the ship in the Irashti port? And even if you didn't know, you could be like, no. And they'd be like, oh, that's a lie. So therefore we know it's somewhere else. And it's like, well, if they didn't know that, that doesn't make any sense. So it makes sense that anxiety would mess it up.
Yep. The good soup. The good soup. Who is your favorite character?
You can't ask me this. I was trying to decide earlier because I was like, this is obviously gonna be asked because we always ask, and I just don't know. I love them all so much, Your Honor. I can't do this. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it is probably between Kado, Evermare, and Tardek, to be honest, as much as I love everybody else. Because I do love like every supporting member of this cast, basically. Like, Malika's iconic, we've already said it. Cyranoss is actually like quite a fun villain, even if he's not very scary. He's still interesting because you can see like his progression of like actually really falling for this family and wanting to like make a home here, and then he's like in too deep, and that's kind of like, you could, if this novel had been from Cyranoss's perspective, it would still be really interesting, I think. Even if it had been extremely tragic. And Tamsyn is obviously also an icon, but she doesn't have enough page time for her to be my favorite. But
fair.
I don't know. The three, I can't. It's like picking children. I love Kado's anxiety representation. And I just love his whole, like, everything to do with that kind of trope of, like, this prince who's, like, actually, like, such a good person and, like, so gentle and kind and doing, like, good things with his position. Asterix, no princes in real life. No monarchies, no kings, no tyrants, etc. But in fiction, love it. Beautiful. But I also love Evermare's just like bluntness and like his internal monologues are so funny, and like a specific like way of seeing the world is so fun. Like I just love inhabiting his point of view when he's just like coming to his little realizations. I love that it takes him like 5/6 into this book to be like, oh, I'm in love with Kado. It's like, what did you think was happening? You were already married to him before you had this realization. This is ridiculous. But then Tardek, my boy, my tragic boy, who's so funny. And he just loves Kado so much. And also, like, I know it would be a very different novel, but I am like, oh my God, I wish they had been poly. I feel like it would be so good. Like, I also adore this for what it is, but imagine what we could have had.
Yeah. There's still time.
There's still time. I feel like Kado and Evermare are just so obsessed with each other that it's just not going to happen. But
yeah,
in another life, you know? Well, I think it would just take Kado and Tardek being a little bit more honest with each other earlier on. A little bit more communicative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Morgan, who's your favourite character? I have not answered the question whatsoever, but I'm going to turn it back on you anyway.
I think it's got to be Kado.
Tell me.
I think he's my boy.
Yeah.
He has such low self-esteem. He's so nervous. He's just like me for real. But he wants devotion so badly. He wants something for himself, but he's also terrified of what that devotion means because he doesn't think he can ever live up to the expectation. And he doesn't think he's enough to give in return. And just a character who has so many people devoted to them while desperately trying to like pour out of an empty cup and has to be told, hey, self-care.
People love you, bro. That scene where Xena is like just praising him aggressively. He's like on the verge of tears, like, please.
Yeah. And she has to be telling the truth because otherwise she's a liar, and Xena would never be a liar.
Exactly. Oh my god, how did I not mention Xena as well when I was naming side characters I love? What an icon. She's so cool.
What an icon.
I can't believe she's 50. I didn't realize this on my previous reads, but then she jokes in that scene. She's like, oh, in 25 years I'll be 76. And I'm like, what? You're out here like climbing walls and stuff. How are you doing all this?
She's an icon.
She is.
She's just like my fave Melinda May from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes. I still can't believe
so real.
That the actor is also the age that she is, because she looks like 20 years younger at least. Bizarre. Shocking.
Absolutely. Crazy.
Xena, my beloved.
Xena. Just so many good characters in this book.
So many good characters. Also, I know we were just like, oh, characters, but circling back to Kedo for a minute, something that I also feel like is very like special about him, particularly in like an Achillean romance, is that he gets to be like the anxious one, and then also more what we would consider feminine. It's very clear that like in Arashti culture, he's not, in terms of like the long hair is just like a class marker. It's not like a gendered thing. And like the florals and stuff are specifically masculine. So he's not specifically in that context. But if you took him out of that context, you know, it's on about his slight figure and his long eyelashes. Like he's definitely sort of like what Western modern culture would call feminine. But he's still the dominant one from what we see of their more explicit relations. And he also still gets to like hold his own, also despite his like anxiety and things. Like that scene where Evermare's like, I'll teach you to fight, feels very like sort of like tropey in terms of like a bodyguard prince thing, where it's like, I'll teach you to defend yourself, I'll protect you. And then Kado just like immediately lays him out and is like,
I loved that.
I can fight better than you, probably. Not strictly true. But he's like, of course, I know how to fight. And then in that scene close afterwards where they get like attacked, it's Kado who ends up like killing two people, and Evermare kind of doesn't contribute because he doesn't have space. So that's just something that I really appreciate, because I feel like there is criticism sometimes about like gay romance novels where it's like one of them gets put in like a more feminine role and one of them gets put in a more masculine role, and it's kind of just like a straight relationship, but not. And I do think that often those criticisms are unfounded, and it's like maybe you're bringing your own biases to this relationship, but I also do think sometimes it's true. But in this case, I'm like, no, definitely not. Like this is definitely like allowing the characters to be like their full authentic selves without like filling a particular like tropey role kind of thing.
Definitely. I have good news for you on the poly front. There are 26 fics on AO3.
Yes, there's one of them that is in fact by Alexandra Rowland, and I haven't brought myself to read it yet because I've been too scared.
Incredible.
But they did just straight up go, I wanted to write more, so here's a fanfiction.
Yeah, I mean, there are 130 fanfics total.
Oh.
There's 26 that are just poly.
That's way more than when I last looked. There were like 4 last time I looked. So some people have been working hard, and I take my hat off to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I know what I'm doing after this.
Oh, there's one person who's been going crazy.
Good for
them. There's like 2 people who've been going crazy. Oh my God, they really have. Sorry. This whole page is just like 2 people.
There you go. To be fair, I think Rowland lends themselves to it a little bit, because this also happens in Running Close to the Wind, I think, where you get like such a slow burn. Like these two barely look at each other for most of this book, and they kiss twice without even being like, it's for real. They're like, oh no, it's for the bit. We're just covering ourselves. It's not real. It takes ages for anything to actually happen between them. And then you actually don't get that much of it. So you're like, more, please. I'm shaking the bars of my enclosure. Hello? That's it?
I find it so interesting that they choose to do Fade to Blacks. Because I feel like they could be I feel like they are probably so good at writing those scenes.
I mean, we get one in this.
But like...
We get one in the garden. But exactly. I feel like that was a good one.
I think it's a good one, but I feel like it's still fairly like...
It's quite tame.
Cliff Notes.
Yes.
I guess. Yeah, and I think it's interesting, especially in the current climate, to do that. But I think it's an interesting choice, because I think it almost makes them feel more intimate.
Yeah, because you're not getting to like see everything that happens between them. You're getting like a little explanation of like what's been happening, like when they're married and then they're like period romance era, where they're like, we can't accidentally consummate our marriage, which is such an insane and hilarious problem to have. And I'm so glad that it does, if only for Tardek's sake. But, but I love that for some reason they decide that like it's fine as long as they don't both finish. What on earth is that definition? Like, apparently everyone is having very good marriages in Arash because...
Yeah, damn.
Reciprocal.
The good stuff.
I love when they do reciprocate. Evermare is just worried about the grass stones.
Priorities correct.
To the point that he stops everything. He's like, no.
No. Absolutely not.
You're going to mess up your trials as well.
You have to be put together. Oh, this is just such a good book.
Their intimacy with each other. The hair washing scene. Oh my god. I have no words for it. I can't. Rowland's prose, I feel like I could read it forever. Like all of the descriptions of like the palace, but then also like of the characters and the clothes and everything. It's just so gorgeous.
Yeah. Like the world building, it feels so lived in. You feel the culture so in depth. It's beautiful. And especially like there's so many like dressing scenes which you'd think would get old, but they don't, because they're such like vehicles of character. A good soup.
And also opportunities for them to like lingering touches. It is very sort of period romance in that way, I feel like.
Yes.
Where it's like,
an excuse
the intricate rituals that we construct. But it's so funny. Like, I love whenever Mare also gets to that stage of like, he hasn't admitted that he's in love with Cato yet, but he's like, he's my lord and I want to serve him. And he just becomes obsessed with doing things for him. Like, Cato like goes to bed and he's like, I didn't get to undress him. I didn't get to blow out the candles for him. And it's like, okay.
Okay. You might be a little bit down bad, as the kids say.
But he's like, no, I'm not. This is just a normal level of devotion that you feel.
Yeah. So normal.
Honestly. The scene as well where Evermare is making his oaths to Cato and Cato thinks he's getting stolen from him. And he like interrupts to be like, no, you can't take him. So embarrassing. What is wrong with you two? I remember listening to that on the bus for the first time and I was like, this is more embarrassing than a sex scene on the bus. I can't. Like, you're in public. What are you doing? He's literally like, he's mine. Stop.
Stop.
In front of his mum, in front of your sister, in front of God and everybody. What are we doing?
Damn.
I know you're gay, but like, what are you doing? Stop.
I would actually dissolve into a puddle.
Imagine witnessing this. And then you're like, and then they're like, oh, I think I'm in love with it. It's like, obviously you are. What do you think was happening?
Yeah. Honestly, if I was Cato's sister, I would never, ever let him live it down. like he's hearing about this every day. It's being brought up at the official, like, actual wedding.
The speech.
It's being brought up at the funeral.
Yeah.
It's being brought up any time ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to watch her find out so bad. It would be so funny. I'm so sad that we don't get that. Makes sense they don't tell her right away. She's going through it. Give her a minute to breathe. However, it would just be so hilarious to see how she reacts.
Please.
She's probably just going to be like, yeah, okay,
We
I know. The marriage will probably be surprising, but the fact that they are into each other, everyone else can see that from space. So it's like, okay.
Yes. Damn.
She was there when Caddo was like, kneel down, cut off your hand for me. And everyone was like, okay, sure.
Sure, XOXO.
Can I tie a tourniquet first? Like, what are you doing?
The rituals are intricate.
I feel like this is one of those books that's going to be very Marmite for people, though, because some people will be like, that's so messed up. They shouldn't be that, like, obsessed with each other. And I'm like, listen, not in real life, but in this book.
In this book.
If someone tells you to cut off your hand in real life, say no. However, in the context of this bodyguard French romance.
Yeah, the ultimate act of devotion and proof of loyalty. Can't you see it for what it is, people? Is that not romantic to you? It's like when people watch Hannibal and they're like, oh my God, it's actually, like, that's insane. How do you ship Hannibal and Will? He literally, like, killed this person. Like he killed, like, one of his best friends. And it's like, yeah, but you don't understand. He did it for him. You don't understand.
It doesn't have to be a good relationship in real life. And I would argue that it's not.
Exactly.
I would argue that it's not.
Yeah. God, I've been watching Interview with the Vampire recently with a friend who hasn't seen it before. And it's so funny. It's like, what do you mean? He, like...
Can't even go into it.
Funny.
I can
trying to explain
that Rowland is also really into Interview with the Vampire from their Tumblr. So
that makes so much sense.
It's all making sense. It's all coming together.
Everything comes back to Interview with the Vampire at the end of the day.
It does. The fan fiction.
Yeah.
It all circles back, you know?
So funny that Anne Rice hated fan fiction.
I know. You didn't know what you were going to get.
Look at what she spawned.
Exactly. Also, one thing that we ironically have not talked about at all is the touch tasting. And it's actually quite a small part of this novel, which I found surprising because I had read the blurb and it's like one of the first things they mentioned about Caddo. And I'm like, yeah, he does that, but it's kind of like having hay fever or something. Like, it doesn't come up that often. But I do. There you go.
I kind of love how matter-of-fact magic is treated in this book.
Yeah.
It's so, like, I think a lot of fantasy novels will have magic, but it will be sort of like the world-breaking magic and sort of like the big stakes magic. And they never really dabble in sort of like just low stakes, teeny tiny bits of magic, which I think Rowland does so well in both of these books, to have like the satiotas and the touch tasters, and having these sort of like, yeah, this isn't my job. This isn't like the biggest thing about me. Like, I'm a guard first and foremost. I'm a prince first and foremost. I don't want to go sit at the Royal Mint. It's just a thing I can do.
Exactly. Malik's like, yeah, I would get paid more, but also I would bore myself to death. So why would I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love all the descriptions that you get from the touch tasting, like the synesthesia type things, which are obviously also another example of Rowland's very gorgeous prose. And then Iron changing to the touch taste of Evermare. I think Rowland invented gay people.
I think so. I agree. Beautiful.
That's the gayest
I'll read
thing I've
anything
ever heard.
they write.
So, yeah.
100%. Insta by author. Everything's amazing. Beautiful stuff.
Hinges being made into the wedding rings as well. I'll never get over that in my life.
Yes.
Also, happy wedding, I got you this door.
Don't have a cloak. Here's a door.
Evermare is actually
comedic genius.
Yeah, like he should be doing stand-up or something. People don't know his talent.
Honestly, when he starts letting himself tell jokes and he just starts doing it so often.
It's so good.
Funny. I adore him. Haha.
Oh my god.
Oh, you've got to believe that they're telling that joke to each other back and forth.
Oh, you're so right. Oh my god. They're so dumb.
Yeah, just swinging open a door into the bedroom and going, I adore you. And then closing the door.
Honestly. Insufferable. Positive.
They're so normal.
Affectionate. I'm too obsessed. I could talk about this book all day. This is my issue. Also, love Evermare's mum. I need to be like Evermare's mum.
Yes.
Iconic.
She's an icon.
She's so funny. When she's like just scolding him and being like, why did you take so long to go to the market? And he's just there like, Mama.
Honeybee.
I want her reaction to them being married as well. Please. I need it. Can you imagine? She'll lose her mind.
Yeah. She's like, please find somebody.
Oh my god, her weaving them the wedding cloak. I don't know if they're woven cloaks, but I'm just going to assume that they are for my own headcanon.
Yes. Yeah. And her friendship with, I keep forgetting, is it Zelia?
Zelia.
Yeah. Her friendship with Zelia, and that she's like teaching her how to make doing the weaving.
Yes.
And being like, yeah, I got to make some of your coronation clothes. It's pretty cool. Just them sort of vibing together in the background. I really liked.
I know that this isn't how marriage works. Actually, I guess it is how marriage works. It's not how children work. But presumably there would be some tie between Zelaha and Evermare's mum, whose name I've also forgotten. Dordana. Mrs. Hoshkadem. If
I'm very bad with names.
Kado and Evermare were married. And you know what? Both of them deserve this. They don't have any parents anymore. Let them have this incredible mother-in-law.
Yes, please.
Because also, I feel like if she's their mother-in-law, then she can actually start scolding them for real, and they need this.
I think yes.
Eozine is doing her best, but they still technically have power over Eozina, so she can only do so much. They can just ignore her.
Yes. They need somebody who can be like, stop it.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Do we have anything else? Although I could keep going. It's terrible.
If you want to keep going, keep going.
I know. We should probably do final thoughts and then recommendations, though, because that often takes us 15 minutes each. My one final thing that I'll say is that there is a point where it's after the kiss, and this is also a scene that I really like, after the first alleyway kiss, where Eozine is interrogating Evermare to make sure that he's okay, which is very nice and sweet. But they specifically mentioned doing it beside a fountain, because the fountain will cover the noise of them having the conversation. And specifically in Running Close to the Wind, Alvara's yeah, that doesn't work. That's people talk way too loud, and it doesn't work unless you're standing in a specific place and the wind is blowing a specific direction. It's just not loud enough. And I just thought that was so funny. I was thinking about that while reading that scene. I was they're definitely being overheard, and some little cadet who was bringing water or something is going,
gasp.
The prince kissed Evermare. The secret is going to be out.
And we know
before
they love to gossip.
Exactly. Now we're going to be able to keep the secret for 5 minutes. They're going at it in the garden. There's no way.
Messy people. I love them.
So Morgan, as the new reader, what were your final thoughts on A Taste for Golden Iron?
It's so good. I love it. I love a good bodyguard romance. I love everything that's weird, possessive, devotional people who are completely unnormal about each other. It has such a special place in my heart. I will definitely be rereading this book. Yeah. I love it. It's so good. Thank you for making me read it, Sorren.
Thank you for getting it for me. It all comes back to you in the end.
Yeah. That's my final thoughts. What are your final fourth final thoughts?
My final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Yeah,
We've been
your
inspired too
final
much by the door
thoughts.
thing. One of the books of all time, honestly. I'm so obsessed with them. I love Evermare copying out his little Pillars of War by hand in his book. I love Caddo being like ruthless and merciless and also a ball of anxiety and also just so pretty. And I love Tardek and I love all of these characters and I love this world. And I'm going to read everything that Alexandra Rowland writes as well. And I will probably be rereading this a 5th time and a 6th time. And we'll just see how many times it goes. I'll probably be rereading this for more years than Rowland spent writing it. Let's say that.
Cute.
Do we have any recommendations for fans of A Taste of Gold 9? Except for, I assume, read Running Close to the Wind.
We're Running Close to the Wind. If you like weird bodyguard devotional stuff.
If you wanted it to be Polly.
Gideon the Ninth. If you want it to be Polly, there's Running Close to the Wind.
Running Close to the Wind, sorry. Not beginning of the Ninth. Well, who knows? Beginning of the Ninth could go any direction, really.
Could do. If you like commerce-based fantasy that is also gay, then Queen of Coin and Whispers by Helen Corcoran is a sapphic duology, but you can read them as standalones, about a queen and her queen mistress who's in charge of the treasury, but is also maybe kind of her spy master as well. And it is very good. I really enjoyed it. And I think it delves into that sort of like commerce-based world building in a similar ways, that drives the plot forward while also being like, and have a romance as well on the side. But that's more aimed at sort of, it is technically a YA book, I believe, but also it's one of those ones where I feel like it has a lot of crossover potential as an adult book.
Yeah, it doesn't feel super YA. Like, I don't know how to explain it beyond that, but like some YA books feel really YA and some like are YA appropriate, but they don't like feel super YA. I don't know how to elaborate beyond that.
Yeah.
I was also going to say something that we've both read, which is what's the name of the series? The Paladin's Strength books, Paladin's Grace, Paladin's
Grace,
Hope, all of them.
Paladin's Grace series, or the Paladin series.
I think it's called something weird. Oh, it's called the Saint of Steel series. That's what it is. Which is not what I would expect. that's what I think it's weird. It's a good name. Which are by T. Kingfisher and are a romance series about people falling in love with different paladins of a dead god. And they're not necessarily, they don't have like the like implicit relationship between the love interest and the paladin. They're both love interests. They're also both protagonists. I don't know how to say it. Between the protagonist as Caddo and Evermare do here. But there's like a similar vibe of like person with a code of honor and a big sword and person who they eventually want to protect for one reason or another, even if it's not like they are prescribed to. And then
yes, and also
go for it.
And also that sort of like romance despite trauma, despite episodes, I feel like is such a big part of it.
I would say especially in Paladin's Grace, like Grace dealing with like her PTSD and like her trauma feels like very much part of like them coming through their relationship. And then to be fair, all of the Paladins do have PTSD. So yeah.
Because I was going to say the third book with the Paladin who literally has like screaming nightmares and they can never actually share the same bed. And the other character's like, yeah, but I actually prefer sleeping on my own anyway. So, this is fine by me.
It's fine. We can have two separate beds. We love it. And the third one is gay for the people who are more keen in romance specifically.
Yeah. The third one is my favourite.
The third one is my favourite so far. I haven't read the fourth one yet, though, so I can't
Me neither.
say.
Yes.
But I'll be surprised.
You are ahead of me in the library queue by one.
It's so long. It's like 6 months. The other thing that I was going to say that we have also read on the show and talked about at length because we've done the entire series, but The Last Binding trilogy by Freya Marske.
Of course.
Another writer who comes from fan fiction in absolutely the best and most complimentary way. Freya Marske and Alexandra Rowland are friends. I don't know what to tell you. They like have similar vibes. They have a lot of devotion. They have a lot of, I'm weirdly and a little bit unhealthily obsessed with this person in a romance, but in a way that's like very, very fun to read.
Yes.
And also like just cool fantasy world building and very aesthetic, lush, beautiful prose as well is something that I would say they both have in common. And 2 of those 100%. Are Italian and 1 of them is Sapphic.
Yes.
So what more could you want, really? I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I feel like that's a fair amount.
That's a fair amount.
Like, I was also going to say, we did mention it in passing earlier, but for something in a completely different genre. But if you want more really good anxiety representation, read I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman.
Yes.
I have to champion it because I want like the sequel one day and also a film adaptation, because also one of the books of all time for me. And for those that might not know what that's about, that is about a fan of a band and a member of that band, and it's dual POV between them, and they're both falling apart for separate reasons in the lead up to like a meetup / concert. And it's not a romance, despite how that sounds. It's really hard to pitch it without making it sound like they're going to fall in love with each other, and they fully don't. And I feel like it's worth just saying that straight up.
I think that's important to say, because it's such an important part of the book that they don't fall in love.
It's like a friendship romance, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you like ruminations on fan culture as well, it's one of the best I've ever seen that actually understands what it is to be a fan.
Yeah. And also, I guess, like, devotion and, like, obsessiveness, but in, like, a different way. You know?
Yes, in a more...
grounded, parasocial is not always good kind of way.
Yeah.
But I feel like that works because it's set in the real world as opposed to a fantasy setting.
Yes. So next time for Swordtember Part 2, we will be doing In Other Lands by Rees Brennan, which is my pick. I'm very excited. I've been going on about this book, actually not as long as I think I have, but it has taken up permanent residence in my brain.
That's a good sign.
And yes, it is, Sorren. Yes. But I will not talk about it anymore. It will be out on the 22nd of September. But until then, you're always welcome through the bookcase.
Don't forget to scratch the cat on your way out. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Bookcase, a production of Plain Our Prod. On this episode, you heard Morgan Greensmith and Sorren Briarwood discussing A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. You can find Rowland on Instagram @_AlexRowland or visit their website at alexandrarowland.net. You can find The Hidden Bookcase on Twitter and Blue Sky @Hidden Bookcase, and on Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and TikTok @Hidden Bookcase Podcast. Find out more about Plain Our Prod at plainourprod.com. Know what we should read next? Or want to chat to us about what you thought of this episode's read? You can reach us at thehiddenbookcase@gmail.com, send us a DM on social media, or come chat with your fellow bookworms in our growing Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Want to support The Hidden Bookcase? Buy a book through our bookshop.org page, or consider leaving us a rating or review or telling a friend how to find us. Your whispers are the best way for bookworms to discover our show. For our next episode, which will be out on September the 22nd, we'll be discussing In Other Lands by Rees Brennan. We hope to see you then, and in the meantime, you're always welcome through the bookcase.